Bezos and Sánchez are officially set to say I do on June 27.
We're entering the final countdown for what promises to be one of the most expensive, most exclusive, highly secretive weddings of the entire year.
And this is the wedding to be at this year. As you say, it will be the wedding of the year. Would Meghan like to be there? She would kill to be there. They are off the A list, they're off the B list. I don't even think they make the C list anymore.
You know something's changed when Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the couple who once hijacked headlines, simply by holding hands aren't just missing from the most exclusive wedding of the year, they're not even a blip on the radar. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez are officially tying the knot in Venice. And while the canals are flooded with A-listers and Megiacs, there's one haunting absence echoing louder than fireworks. No Meghan, no Harry, and no explanation. That silence. It says more than a press release ever could.
She would kill to be there, but I don't think her or Harry came anywhere near making this guest list. They weren't sort of considered and then, or well, perhaps we can't quite fit them in. These people are not in this league anymore.
Before we get deeper into the shocking implications of this royal exclusion, take a second to subscribe to the channel. We expose what the mainstream won't: real stories, raw truth, and no fluff. If you want to stay ahead of the curve and behind the scenes, hit that button now. Now, let's talk about the wedding that has the whole world buzzing. This isn't just a lavish ceremony, it's a cultural shift on full display. For 3 straight days, Venice transforms into a billionaire's fantasyland. Private jets are landing on undisclosed runways. Security is so tight, locals can't even take their regular strolls without bumping into a bodyguard in designer sunglasses. Drones are grounded, streets are blocked, canal-side palazzos are lit up like movie sets. And at the heart of it all, the richest man on earth marrying the woman who somehow went from tabloid sideshow to elite icon. Lauren Sánchez didn't just walk into this marriage, she engineered it. While the world dismissed her as Bezos' girlfriend, she was out here flying helicopters, building nonprofit visibility, and slowly integrating into the kind of conversations that make billionaires nod with respect. Say what you want, she earned her seat at this table. And now she's throwing a party that practically screams, "This is who matters now." Which brings us to Meghan and Harry. Not only are they not on the guest list, they're not even part of the conversation. No speculation about their arrival. No paparazzi whispers. Not even a planted, they politely declined statement from their team. It's not that they were denied a sight, it's that no one expected them to show up. They've gone from global disruptors to cultural background noise. And let's not pretend they don't feel it. Back in 2018, Meghan and Harry couldn't breathe without setting off international headlines. Their wedding was broadcast to billions. Their departure from royal duties was world-shattering. They were the blueprint for the modern rebel power couple, part monarchy, part Hollywood, all intrigue. But somewhere along the way, they stopped evolving. They stopped building. They started recycling the same narrative until it collapsed under its own weight. The Oprah interview was lightning in a bottle. Their Netflix docuseries was a media event. But what came after? A podcast that flopped. A memoir that made headlines. For all the wrong reasons, a lifestyle brand that can't seem to launch anything beyond a jar of jam and a blurry aesthetic. What was once bold now feels tired. What was once fresh now feels forced. And Hollywood doesn't do forced. See? If there's one thing this industry understands, it's momentum. You either have it or you're out. And right now, Meghan and Harry, they're out. Not in a scandalous, tabloid-fueled way. In the worst way possible, they've become irrelevant. Meanwhile, Bezos and Sánchez have mastered the optics game. Their wedding is more than a celebration, it's a resume. Every guest represents something. Power, wealth, influence, relevance. Oprah's there. So is DiCaprio, Kim Kardashian, even political royalty like Ivanka Trump. These aren't just names, they're signals. They're proof that the people in attendance are still shaping culture. And Meghan and Harry, not even a mention. That's not an oversight. That's a shift. When you're really at the center of influence, you don't beg for attention, you attract it. You don't remind people of your worth, you demonstrate it. And that's where the Sussexes fell behind. Their story has become a loop, a remix of grievances, empowerment buzzwords, and vague brand messaging. Take Meghan's latest venture, American Riviera Orchard. It promised elegance, lifestyle, maybe even a return to roots. What did we get? Stylized photos, hints at jam, a few influencer boxes, no launch, no vision, just vibes. That's not a business, that's a distraction. And Harry, he's floating. One minute he's talking about trauma, the next, he's discussing AI ethics. It all sounds important, But none of it lands because there's no cohesion, no story. No brand. Compare that to what Bezos and Sánchez are doing. They've got the narrative locked. Innovation, power, philanthropy, luxury, and most importantly, forward motion. That's why they're not just hosting a wedding. They're curating a new hierarchy. And Meghan and Harry, they're not on the list not because they were banned, but because they've expired. Let that sink in for a second. Meghan and Harry didn't lose their seat at the table because of scandal or betrayal. They lost it because they stopped being part of the conversation. And in Hollywood, irrelevance is louder than controversy. You're either the story or you're nobody. That's the brutal truth. This wedding, Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez S3-day billion-dollar showcase, is more than a party. It's a scoreboard. It tells you exactly who's in and who's out. And right now, the Sussexes are nowhere. To be found not on the dock, not in the paparazzi shots, not in the whispers. They've vanished from the ecosystem that once revolved around them. The saddest part? They used to Matara a lot. They shook up Buckingham Palace. They forced the crown to answer hard questions. They walked away from centuries of tradition and set the world on fire. That took guts. That took presence. And for a moment, it worked. The world listened. They had the stage. But then they stood on it and said the same thing over and over. Again. Archetypes, the podcast that was supposed to redefine how we talk about women, became therapy-light interviews. Spare Harry's memoir was a tell-all that felt more like a cry for attention than a masterstroke of storytelling. The Netflix doc, a gorgeous vanity project with nothing new to say. They didn't evolve, they recycled, and the audience didn't. Noticed, you can't spend years telling people you're not being heard while standing on the loudest platforms in the world. Eventually, people tune out. And when that happens, you're not just ignored, you're replaced by people like Sánchez, who went from media curiosity to power player. People like Oprah, who never stopped being culturally relevant. People like Kim Kardashian, who mastered the algorithm while building billion-dollar empires. These women move, they shift. They own their narrative, Meghan. She soft launches jam, and maybe that would be fine if it felt intentional. But everything about their recent moves screams uncertainty. From lifestyle brands with no products to interviews that say nothing new. It feels like the Sussexes are stalling, waiting for the world to remember them without giving it a reason. But the world doesn't wait, it moves. Hollywood, especially, doesn't stop to ask where you went. If you're not at the party, you're already forgotten. And this isn't just a one-off. This is a pattern, where once Meghan and Harry were on every shortlist, now they're struggling to stay relevant. The charity galas, the industry panels, the fashion circles, they're slipping. They're no longer fixtures. They're no longer essential. And that's what this wedding drives home, because the Bezos-Sánchez guest list isn't random. It's not about friendship. It's about leverage, power, alignment. Each invite is a strategic move, a symbol, and a message. Harry and Meghan not being there. That's a message too. A loud, clear one. It says, you're no longer a part of this. And, yes, there are people who will claim this is all by choice. That Meghan and Harry have chosen privacy. That they're focusing on their family. That they're stepping away from the spotlight intentionally, but we know better because people who choose privacy don't hire six-figure PR teams. They don't announce every move through curated press. They don't launch brands in half measures, tease product lines without execution, or attend panels just to be seen. Privacy isn't the play. They're just not being invited anymore. And Meghan, if we're honest, knows this. Her instincts are sharp. Her sense of optics, when she's on her game, is second to none. She knows what an omission like this signals, but this time it's different, because the silence isn't just personal, it's strategic. No spin, no cover story, no staged leak, just exclusion, and it hurts more than any tabloid headline ever could. Asterisk, because this isn't a feud, this isn't a falling out, this is indifference, and that's far worse. When Hollywood decides you no longer matter, it doesn't slam the door, it simply stops returning your calls. There's no drama, no fallout, just absence. Deafening, undeniable. Absence. Meghan and Harry are no longer shaping the narrative. They're reacting to it, and the difference is everything. For years, they were the disruptors. They had a chance to redefine fame, legacy, and influence on their own terms. But instead of building something durable, they built a brand on grievance. And that's not sustainable. You can't keep selling victimhood to a world that's stopped feeling sorry for you. It's not that people don't care about their story anymore. It's that they've heard it before, again and again. And while Meghan and Harry keep pressing rewind, the rest of the world has moved to the next track. Let's take a closer look at that. While Meghan posts carefully filtered shots of fruit, baskets, and kitchen counters, her competitors, yes, that's what they are, Naor crafting legacy. Oprah is securing cultural milestones. Kim is reshaping fashion, law, and entertainment all at once. Lauren Sánchez is redefining what it means to be the partner of a billionaire, no longer a plus one, but a full brand in her own right. They're not asking for inclusion, they're claiming space. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry still seem to think their titles are enough, that being former royals will keep the spotlight burning. But fame, especially in America, isn't inherited. It's earned, again and again, and when you stop earning it, you start fading. That's exactly what's happening. And the Bezos wedding is the public proof. This was the moment, the reunion of relevance. The who's who of power, legacy, and dominance. The guest list was a modern aristocracy, tech moguls, global influencers, Hollywood titans. Everyone who still commands attention was there. Everyone except Meghan and Harry, not as guests, not as rumors, not even as an afterthought. Just gone, and the press, it barely flinched. No headlines wondering where they were. No speculation about whether they might show up fashionably late. Just a quiet acceptance that they're not part of the moment anymore. That's brutal, because for a couple that once dominated the global conversation, to become this invisible, this irrelevant is devastating, especially when the contrast is so stark. Look at Bezos and Sánchez. Whatever you think of them personally, their execution is flawless. Their relationship was once messy, full of scandal. But they flipped the script. They turned headlines into power. They made the chaos work for them. Now they're the ones setting the cultural agenda, and Meghan and Harry, they're barely keeping up. It's not that they've done nothing, it's that everything they've done has felt empty, lacking purpose, lacking fire. It's hard to say what their brand even is anymore. Royal rebels. That chapter's closed. Hollywood power couple, never fully realized. Wellness influencers, too inconsistent. They're stuck in between relevance and nostalgia, between icon and afterthought, and the longer they stay there, the harder it is to come back. That's the danger no one warns you about in the spotlight. When the lights dim, it doesn't feel like an explosion. It feels like a fade, quiet, slow, unstoppable. And that's exactly where Meghan and Harry are now fading, frame by frame. Out of a picture they once commanded, the most painful part. They had everything they needed to win. A compelling backstory, a global platform, media mastery, public sympathy. For a time, they had it all, and then they overplayed it. The same story, the same tone, the same blame. Over and over, and eventually, even your most loyal audience starts to ask, what else? But there wasn't anything else. There was no next act, no evolution, just merch, memoirs, and media cycles that fizzled faster than they ignited. Meghan's American Riviera orchard didn't feel like a passion project, it felt like a placeholder, like a celebrity hoping the aesthetic would mask the absence of substance. And Harry's public appearances? Fragmented, detached. One week, he's at a veterans event. The next, he's discussing virtual trauma. But the follow-through never arrives. The message never lands. It's like they're ticking boxes on a checklist instead of actually building something. Meanwhile, their silence at the Bezos wedding echoes louder with every passing hour. Because again, this isn't just about being invited. This is about what it means to not be invited. When you're truly relevant, your presence is expected. Your absence is newsworthy. But Meghan and Harry, their absence doesn't provoke speculation. It confirms it. It confirms the whispers that have been growing, louder for months, that they're no longer key players, that the spotlight has moved on, that the narrative doesn't need them anymore. And let's be clear, this isn't about a decline in fame. This is about a decline in influence, because fame is easy to get. But influence takes consistency, momentum, vision. That's what Oprah has. That's what DiCaprio has. That's what Sánchez has crafted out of nothing, and Meghan and Harry, they've lost it. Or maybe they never figured out how to wield it in the first place. That's why the Bezos wedding hurts. Not because they missed a party, but because they missed a moment. A chance to re-enter the room, to remind the world why they used to matter. Instead, they watched it from the sidelines. If they even watched at all, the symbolism is unavoidable. The richest man alive, remarrying in a 3DA affair, surrounded by the world's most relevant power brokers, and the couple who once claimed to redefine royalty isn't even near the venue. There's no better metaphor for how far they've fallen. And maybe, just maybe, that's the wake-up call they need. Because if Meghan and Harry want a second act, it won't come from nostalgia. It won't come from more interviews or empty launches. It'll come from doing something new, something bold, something real, something that doesn't require a backstory to justify its place in the spotlight. Because right now, their place is gone and the world is watching someone else step into it. Asterisk, so where does this leave them? At a crossroads? One they probably didn't expect to arrive at so soon, because irrelevance doesn't knock. It doesn't warn you. It just slips into the room, sits in your chair, and waits for you to notice you've been replaced. For Meghan and Harry, the silence surrounding their absence from the Bezos wedding is more than a snub, it's a statement. It's Hollywood's way of saying, you had your moment. You didn't evolve. And now, we're moving on. That's the cruel magic of this industry. It thrives on reinvention, but only for those who know when and how to change. Beyoncé changed. Oprah changed. Even Kim Kardashian transformed from reality star to empire builder. The ones who survive don't cling to old headlines. They write new ones. And that's the opportunity. Meghan and Harry still have if they're willing to take it. They need to stop soft launching and start strategizing. Stop reacting and start creating. The world doesn't want another victim narrative. It wants vision, direction, a clear, confident path forward. Something tangible, something that isn't about the palace, the press, or the past. They had every chance to become a global force. A couple who used their platform not just for visibility but for transformation. But transformation requires more than exposure, it demands execution. The American public is watching. Hollywood is watching. The press is watching. And while they may be polite right now, there's only so much patience for a brand that doesn't deliver. If Meghan wants to be seen as more than a former duchess, she needs to step into something greater than curated Instagram posts and tea blends. If Harry wants to be taken seriously beyond his titles, he needs to own something. Build something that isn't just an extension of his trauma, because right now, they're caught in limbo between monarchy and celebrity, between past relevance and future potential. And unless they do something radically different, they risk becoming cautionary tales. A reminder that even the brightest spotlight fades if you don't give it fuel. The Bezos wedding wasn't just a glamorous ceremony, it was a reminder of how quickly the power tables turn. And Meghan and Harry, they weren't just absent, they were invisible. But here's the thing, comebacks are possible. Hollywood loves a redemption arc almost as much as it loves a downfall. But it's going to take more than a new project or another It's going to take a reinvention so strong, so focused, that people can't help but pay attention, because this time, no one's handing them another chance. They have to take it. Until then, the new power, circle Bezos, Sánchez, Oprah, DiCaprio, and the rest will keep spinning forward, and the Sussexes, they'll remain exactly where they are. In the background, watching the show, they once headlined. But what do you think? Is this the final chapter of Meghan and Harry's rise and fall, or is there a new act waiting behind the curtain? Let us know in the comments, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We bring you the raw, unfiltered stories no one else will touch. You won't want to miss what's coming next, because the spotlight never stays in one place. And in this world, you either own the room or get locked out of it.